Hey, what's up guys, and welcome back to another Genshin Impact video. I'm Ven, and we're here to talk about another Genshin Impact topic that I've had a bit of a long-standing history of talking about this topic, and a pretty hefty amount of stuff. And what I'm going to be talking about is mainly increasing player game time and player enjoyment for the game. Because I don't feel like that is something that people kind of want, in a sense. I don't know if that's the right word, but I'm going to be talking about a few ideas that people and the Mihoyo can implement into the game to increase player playtime throughout the day. Because personally, from my experience and just assuming from other players who are above AR 55, the average playtime of those players on a day where not a single AR 55 player is streaming, and each person has a total of like maybe an hour's worth of playtime at most in Genshin Impact per day. And for a game that's an open world grinding game, that's pretty low. I'm gonna be honest with you, that's quite low. And so in this video again, we're just gonna be going through a few ideas to increase that, ideas that I can implement and instantly boost that, and also alongside playtime, player enjoyment whilst playing the game. Because I will say that overall, whilst I enjoy Genshin Impact, and it takes I play for such a short amount of time, the short amount of time that I do play for isn't extremely joyful. Some things are cool, like killing monsters, doing massive damage, but overall, it's filled with a fair bit of disappointment with artifact rolls, boss drops, mob drops, a few glitches and bugs along the way, but that's neither here nor there. Generally, it's a low enjoyment with a low amount of time. So what I want to try to suggest is ideas that will boost the amount of time that you play the game and also the enjoyment. So let's just jump into a few of the ideas. I've got a piece of paper here somewhere that I'll be reading off of, but this is going to be a bit of a conversational type video, so let's just jump into it. Okay, so let's just jump into the two main kind of massive things that everyone's been talking about recently, and the biggest thing going into Genshin after 1 year that it really didn't have about 6 months into its lifespan and should have gotten at that point. And people have talked about these two ideas, or maybe really one of them, but I'm going to suggest two ideas to fix the problem of then being nothing in the end game. And I'm going to be referencing two other gacha games as I suggest these ideas. And those two gacha games are one that is kind of multi-platform, Raid Shadow Legends. You can get it on PC and mobile. I'll be referencing this game, as well as one that's mainly on iOS, which is Immortal Summoners. These are two games that I play on the side of Genshin. Obviously, I make YouTube videos about Genshin, stream Genshin, but these two gacha games I play on the side. I don't really put money into them, not a single dollar really. And the two ideas that I'm pulling from these gacha games is the immense amount of customizability that comes from these games, mainly referring to Raid Shadow Legends, as well as the boss type system that Immortal Summoners has in the terms of the guild raid boss, and also the weekly boss in a sense. I'm not sure it's a weekly boss, but there's bosses. And so let's just jump over to Raid Shadow Legends customizability a bit more. So the first thing that I'm going to be talking about is the artifacts. So Raid Shadow Legends has the exact same artifact system as Genshin Impact. You go to a certain area, you grind up the artifact, you get a good one, you use it, you level it up to 16 in Raid Shadow Legends. In Genshin it's 20. The one thing that Raid Shadow Legends has above Genshin Impact is, obviously it's a longer time span, so let me just clarify that it has been out for a lot longer. But even I did play it at launch, it has more artifacts that do a broader spectrum of things, from as simply as you have like a higher chance or a chance at all of applying a certain buff or debuff, as something as simple as that, or something as technical as for some amount of time you gain 30% shield of your HP, so on and so forth. But the cool thing about Raid is that the simple buffs that you get from set bonuses are done in the two sets, right? So you equip two pieces of the artifact and you get that simple buff. So you equip two of the attack pieces, you get 15% attack. You equip two of the speed pieces, you get 15% speed. And then the more technical side of the 2 sets and 4 sets and whatnot, so 30% chance to apply 40% slow, a bit technical I say, but it's not really, but a bit more advanced is, they're the 4 set, they restrict you. So you can only have one 4 set and one 2 set, because in Raid you have 6 pieces of gear that you can put on, so that's the trade-off. How Mihoyo or Genshin can adopt this system, I'm not even going to say copy, they can they can take it, they can take the system, and then transform it into, like, Genshin-wise, is they have different sets. So they have now a 2 set and a 4 set. That is very limiting, because as soon as you have one 2 set, you can only have one other 2 set. And once you have one 4 set, you can't have another 2 set. So they should broaden their kind of artifact set kind of bonuses or set synergy by adding, let's say you have a 2 set and a 3 set a bonus. Obviously, let's say that jump wouldn't be as increasive, so it wouldn't go from, like, let's say 2 set being a 15% buff to 3 set being a 300% buff. Nothing like that. It would be a small gain, but it would be a reason to have a 3 set, so you have one 3 set and then one 2 set. So it adds a bit more customization there. But they can also take it a step further, and this is something that I haven't seen in games, but it's just an idea of adding a 5 set bonus. It's a pure 5 set bonus, and it's a monstrous bonus. And to get this, you need to grind so much of that artifact set, so only a small fraction of players will have it, obviously, but it's something that you can infinitely grind towards. Obviously, RNG is RNG, and people are always going to be annoyed by it, but it's something that you can infinitely grind for, an infinite goal, obviously not solving the problem, but still adding a bit of customization through the artifact system. And now moving on to the boss type system that I get from Immortal Summoners, which is actually a really cool system. And how it works is, obviously in Immortal Summoners you have a clan. You don't have a clan in Genshin, so that's problem 1. They'd have to find a way to alleviate that. But it's having a boss that you can grind on a daily or a weekly, some sort of measurement of time. You can grind the boss, not something obscure like bi-monthly or something like that, or bi-yearly. No obscure things like that, but you can farm this boss on a day-to-day basis, but it's not a boss that you kill. It's a boss that you go in, do as much damage as you can in an allotted amount of time, and depending on how much damage you do, depends on what reward you get. And the rewards can be as simple as an excessive amount of, I say a good amount of Mystic Ore enhancement, a good amount of, like, let's say the green versions of talent materials. These are all redundant rewards to, let's say, the higher tier players that are, you know, AR58, not 80, AR58. These materials are redundant to them, but in general, it's a process of doing something difficult by trying to achieve a high number of damage to a singular boss in an allotted time, which can be, let's say, a minute and a half. And then obviously they could also have a leaderboard, which adds a bit of competitiveness with the players. So, you know, how it's done in Raid Shadow Legends is you have a boss, you have 2 to 3 attempts per day to do damage to this boss, and you can kill them in Raid Shadow Legends. That's why I didn't want to say that one specifically, but in Immortal Summoners you can honestly, the boss has like infinite HP at that point, and so you're just seeing how much damage you can do, and depending on how much damage you do depends on what reward you get. And this for Genshin can be a different boss with a different kind of HP pool or a different damage pool for different milestones of your adventure rank. So obviously AR55 and above would have their own, and then AR45 and above or AR45 to 55 would have their own, AR35 to 45 would have their own boss that they deal, and they'd have their own leaderboard, like a ranking system. Obviously, leaderboards add competitiveness, and I've always advocated that competitive gameplay increases the longevity by a game by a hefty amount. No matter what, if it has some sort of competitiveness where players can go back and forth, there will always be a hefty amount of longevity from a game. I've always advocated for that. And that's why I feel there should be a leaderboard for Spiral Abyss. There should be a leaderboard for anything they add that has potential to be a just end game content. And that's why I feel this boss type thing would be cool. It's just a weekly boss, and I would maybe even argue daily boss, that you can get daily resources. Let's say you go in there and you know, the milestones are like do 500,000 damage is the first milestone, and if you do 500,000 damage, which is moderately easy in the time slot of a minute and a half. So let's say you do 500,000 damage and you get 10 Mystic Ore enhancement, 10 Hero's Wit, and 50,000 Mora. That's pretty good. That's, you know, that's not extreme. That's nothing extreme, but that's good. That's essentially one roll on a ley line of both kinds, essentially. Minus the Mystic Core enhancement, but that's neither here nor there. That's essentially one roll onto each of those. That's pretty good. 50,000 more is good for a daily thing, a guaranteed daily thing. Cool, but then let's say you get to the point of doing 1 million damage over the time period of a minute and a half, you'll be able to up your rewards to double that, let's say. Pretty much double it. So 10 Heroes Wit, 10 Mystic Ore Enhancement, and 100,000 more. Again, you're doubling your rewards as you go up the leaderboard. But then let's say they want to take it even further, and if in a minute and a half you can do, let's say, 1.5 million damage, you get triple the base rewards, so you'd get 30 Heroes Wit. Actually, that might be pushing it, but just for the hypothetical, let's go with it. 30 Heroes Wit, 30 Mystic Ore Enhancement, and 300,000 more. But on top of getting that 1.5 mil, there's a fourth reward of, let's say, a few artifacts or primo gems or a prototype, some sort of extra reward, obviously to reward the players who are aspiring to deal more and more damage in a time period. That adds competitiveness, again, longevity. That adds something to strive towards, almost infinite striving, like infinite something to strive towards, because, well, obviously there would be a cap on how much damage you can do, because they have to add a cap. You can't go infinitely, because someone would figure out a way to get infinite and then just get infinite rewards and so on and so forth. But you know what I mean? It just adds this infinite kind of infinite, what's the word I'm looking for? It's an infinite striving parallelogram. You just strive for it and it's infinite. It adds that, and that's what I believe will increase longevity. People play the game for longer because they have something to do instead of just spending resin, just doodling around, whatever people do. What do you even do in Genshin nowadays? Nothing really. You log on, daily commissions, you leave. GG. So I believe these are a few things that they could do in terms of end game wise. This is like end game stuff. You reach a certain AR, and let's say it could also start at AR 35, something like that. But these are the two things I could think of that they could do end game wise without affecting the game too drastically at a fundamental level. Is adding a bit more customization with artifacts, giving people better kind of interlocking of different artifact sets and different amount of artifact sets. And on top of that, some sort of boss that you can do on a daily, or let's say a bi-daily, or something along those lines. Some short amount of time that you can do. And from that, he has an infinite amount of scaling or whatever, and infinite damage that you can do, and per damage milestone, you get a different reward. Those are just two ideas, very simple, very straightforward, don't affect the game on a fundamental level, because a few of the other ideas I have do actually affect the game on a fundamental level, to an extent, obviously. But let's just now jump into those other ideas. Alright, so for this next idea, I decided to open up Paint just to illustrate it a bit better, hopefully get this point across that I think would it would increase player interactiveness with the characters that they own, and add a bit of customization and a bit of kind of togetherness to their whole build, because they can have it however they want. And so the whole concept of the idea is each character in the game has 2 different abilities for each ability slot. So each character would have 2 different elemental bursts, 2 different skills, and 2 different attack patterns. Now this is obviously, before we can jump into it, this is a very skeptical and very speculatory kind of thing, because they'd obviously have to build a character twice. That's probably something that they're not fans of, playing a game twice. For balancing purposes, if something is broken, they'd have to fix 2 things instead of 1, and obviously this is a lot more workload for people and the dev team and everything. So this is obviously an idea that's very far and beyond any kind of possibility, but I think it's a cool idea to just mention it, get it out there, and get people talking about it, and see if people enjoy the idea. And so I'm going to use Zhongli as the example for this one, because I've thought about him as a character and how it could affect him a lot. And so currently I'm going to do a very dodgy drawing of Zhongli here. So this is Zhongli. And how it would work, currently Zhongli sends out his ultimate, and it affects an area. I'll just switch it to red. So if this is behind him, it affects an area behind him and a massive area in front of him. That's how Zhongli's ultimate currently works. But let's say you have the option of the meatball, or you have the option of a constant damaging Geo Aura, right? Obviously the numbers and everything would have to be worked out internally, but in a sense, you instead of chucking down a meatball that, you know, petrifies enemies and does lots of damage, you use your thing and you cast a massive geo aura that flies rocks around you, dealing damage. Obviously, this is a terrible illustration, but the size could be, let's say, moderately big, just to make it usable and not redundant. But the general concept is there's an aura of geo around him to kind of also hint at the fact that, you know, it has to do with his tankiness, you know, or something like that, to do with that he's sturdy, he's a rock guy, you know, to also hint at that fact, right? Something like that. Obviously that's an idea, but you can either have the meatball, which is a cool ability, petrifies, whatnot, but you can also have the option of having a geo aura. That's cool, you can build your character in two different ways for the elemental burst. Now, in terms of elemental skill, you know, currently how Zhongli's elemental skill is, you can press it and you'll summon a pylon, which is cool and all. The pylon will pulsate geo damage. Absolutely a-okay, phenomenal ability. And then if you hold it, Zhongli will like do some like weird wave thing where he does a bunch of stuff, and then he'll also at the same time summon a pylon. That's how his elemental skill currently works. And then on top of that, you'll also just gain a shield around yourself. So that's pretty cool. But let's say they want to spice it up now and they want to give Zhongli a bit of a damaging ability in line with his character's lore. That would be cool. And the idea that I thought of is if we look at the Gweili Stone Mountains, or the Gweili Stone Forest, I think it is, or the area southeast of Liyue, the kind of where the Geo domain is. That's how I'm going to do it. But that area, that's where Zhongli threw a bunch of his like Geo spears into the ground trying to kill some gods or whatever, right? Just casual Zhongli things, right? But they can build upon that, and let's say the ability is called Javelin, and he literally just chucks one of his stone pillars into the ground like this, and it just deals one hit of damage, one big hit of damage, but it's just one hit of damage. So it would essentially be like Bennett's elemental skill, Diluc's elemental skill but not chained, stuff like that, where it's just one hit of damage and that's it, a bit of geo damage. The general idea that I want to get across with this suggestion is that they could add a bit of character customization to the actual character themselves, so not every player is playing each character the same. Obviously, again, I said at the start, this is a long shot in terms of potentially adding to the game, because it adds the creation of a character again, so they have to recreate Zhongli from the ground up. But again, it's just a suggestion, just getting the idea out there because it's a very cool idea in my opinion. Okay, so now jumping back to the idea of them adding new domains, or quote-unquote new domains. This idea is more of a pointless replayability, if you will. I wouldn't call it productive replayability, but they can obviously make it productive. But if they added systems like in roguelike dungeon crawlers, if they added systems that are in those, or a system like itself, a dungeon crawler, that again adds a lot of infinite play or replayability, sorry, and a lot of player interaction with daily content and increasing the daily playtime. Now, obviously, when I say increasing daily playtime, that just sounds like they're doing it for no reason, but obviously I'm suggesting in a way that rewards the players, you know, justly. And so I'm going to pull from World of Warcraft, pulling a bit of information from World of Warcraft. Obviously, currently a phenomenal game, you know, doing great, as they say, obviously with a lot of its tension, but we're not going to get into that. But in Shadowlands, a system called Torghast was added, which I did play pretty extensively, pushing it pretty hard and doing as much as I can, whilst I was playing WoW. But that system was added to a game that is an MMO. They added a roguelike dungeon crawler to an MMORPG, which is pretty unheard of before. I haven't heard of that kind of concept being added to other games. So I thought, why not think of and add something similar to Genshin Impact? And so they could add a very similar thing where you go through a portal, you go through a domain, and it starts you off, boom, you're right there, and you're in a room, and you have to progress through killing all the enemies per room, and then obviously there can be hidden treasure, tick one, hidden buffs, hidden bosses that drop some treasure, hidden enemies, they could drop stuff that you pick up, and it actually goes into your bag, like Heroes Wit, Mora, Primos, artifacts, weapons, just random blue weapons, stuff like that. So How it would work is essentially, if we all remember, for those who aren't AR 55 yet, this is not going to apply to you yet, but for all those 55 and above, if you remember, if we look back to the days of not being 55, we will remember that we had to do a world tier quest every time we got to a new world tier. And I'm pretty sure they were at 55, 45, 35, 25, and you had to go to the Electro domain, and it was one of the other side, like, things that you could click, and it was a unique domain that you go in there and you explore, you kill some enemies, and you complete it, and then you go up a world tier. Well, the reason that most of you probably don't remember that now, and it's kind of like coming back to you now that I'm saying it, is because, well, it was the same domain every single time. Like, why? Why was it the same domain? They could have changed the domain so easily. So easily. They could have changed the domain to make it harder, more expansive. Tick number 1, actually, more expansive and more interactive the higher in an adventure rank you are. So the 55 adventure rank quest that you had to do was just this massive maze of monsters here, items there, everything everywhere, just balloons, hovercrafts, everything. I'm pushing the limits now, but they could have done something more with the higher tiers they go, and you might have remembered it then. And then now taking that same system of having a domain that you do after you reach a certain threshold, so let's say it becomes available after AR 35 or after AR 45. Let's not limit it to 55 because 55 is still very high to get now, but AR 45 or AR 35, once you get there, it becomes available to you to do this rogue-like dungeon crawler where you go in, and let's say it has a cap, but it's so hard to achieve. So let's say it has get to floor 30, and obviously one floor is one kind of maze. You have to sit there for like 6 hours to do it, but for the players who want to sit there for 6 hours doing it, they get this very unique is not the right word, but they get this very solo system of going through something and doing it by yourself, achieving it by yourself, and having everything run how you want it as the player, but obviously you are not in control of what you're encountering. Also, if, you know, when you look at Spiral Abyss, you know what you're going to run into. It's there. The arena never changes. You know, if they had some spicy arenas, maybe that would spice it up a bit, but you go into this domain, you don't know what you're fighting, but you can control how you deal with it to an extent, and you know how everything's going to play out to a moderate extent. Not obviously to the highest extent, but you know how everything's going to work out to this level. Not here, but here. You know what I mean? And so that's a cool idea. I thought of that world tier ascension quest, and I was like, that, where they could have built upon that. They could have actually made it a bit more of an expansive system per quest that you do. So the first one is simple, of going into a domain. You've got 3 rooms of monsters, and then, you know, by the end one, you're going through like half a raid the size of Mordor. I don't know, they could have made that so much better, but they didn't. And now I'm suggesting the idea of a roguelike dungeon crawler where you go in and you have 30 floors ahead of you, and you have no clue how it's going to go out, because it's, guess what, randomly generated. That's how dungeon crawlers work. They are all randomly generated from a handful of presets. You know, they could create, let's say, 20 to 30 different presets, and these are randomly connected however they can be, and you just go ahead and do them. Each time it will be unique, and the more presets you add, the more monsters you add, the more everything you add to the system itself, the more unique it gets. And they could tie some rewards to it at the end. Let's say you clear floor 30, you get 300 primos. GG, that's minimum. Thank you. This system is amazing. Add it to the game. Ship it. Okay, so let's wrap this video up with one more idea, and this one, I should clarify that it pretty much won't affect anyone who's been playing the game seriously on a daily basis for a year now. This will not affect you in any way because you've most likely done it already. But this is adding an actual way to level up your ults without expending resources. I don't know why this isn't in the game already, and if it kind of is, but it doesn't work. so I'm just not going to even count it as a system. But currently, if you want to go and level up any kind of alt character, so if your main character is a Eula and you want to level up your level 30 or 20 or 10 or even level 1 Yanfei, or if you want to level up your level 1 Barbara for some reason, you have to expend resources. And for what reason? Your world level is 8 or 9, whatever the max one is. Your world level is the max, your enemy level is the max. Why is it that when I go out and kill an enemy with this level 1 character in my party, they don't just get XP that they don't get an abundance of XP to level them up? Why is that? And that's because Mihoyo didn't think ahead. They didn't really think that people would get to level 90 or world tier 90 and they'd not have characters at level 1. So my idea is they revamp the system of getting XP to make it so you actually get a noteworthy amount of XP from killing enemies, and it goes into these alt characters that are on the party, because I do not like the idea that I have to expend so many resources on leveling my alts. I have to expend, let's say it's around the 100 heroes wit mark, 100 to 50 to 100 heroes wit, somewhere in that range, to get them from level 1 to 50. Why is that? At 50 they're useless, and 100 heroes wit, or in that range of 50 to 100, that's a lot of heroes wit. So the idea that I have to use a hefty amount of heroes wit to get a character from not usable to still not usable is ridiculous. It's just a stupid idea. So they should revamp the system, because currently how it works, it is in the game. You can do it if you really, really want to. You can level up a character from level 1 to level 90, but you're going to be clearing monsters on the whole map on every single mob reset for the next 2 to 3 years before one character gets to level 90. Because I had my Noelle on one of my accounts at level 81. She's still at level 81, and I cleared a lot of mobs with her. You get about 100 experience per monster, give or take, let's say 20, depending on the monster, right? Some giving 120, some giving 80, somewhere in that range. You need like 8 point something million XP, or like 800 and something thousand XP per level after 80. I don't know the exact maths because I haven't checked actually, I probably should have, but it's around, you need a hell of a lot of XP, like millions more percent more than 100 that you're getting per mob. So the fact that we're getting that much and then it doesn't do anything, we have to spend heroes wit, it disappoints me. Because they tried to add a system, but they didn't actually try. They tried, but they didn't really. That's pretty much how it is. Because the system is so bad that you can't even blame it for being like, oh, you know, it's just implemented poorly. No, it's not implemented poorly. It's just they didn't try. They were like, oh, slap it in. No, we don't care. That's what it feels like that they did. So them revamping that, and obviously, again, I did say this doesn't apply to players who have been playing for a long time, who have a lot of characters already at level 80, 90, and in that range. It really only applies to players who still have a lot of characters at level, you know, 20, 10, 1, whatever it is. But what this also does apply to is for future characters. Players gonna want to go and not waste their materials. They're gonna get the new character, the new C6 character. They're gonna get the new character, 4-star, 5-star, whatever it is. They're gonna slap them in the team. They're gonna go do one around the world, and they're gonna have the character at what level? Let's say 50, 60, because that's about 200, 300 monsters. They're gonna have them around that range, and then they're gonna be like, okay, now I'll invest some resources into getting him because I'm not over investing. And that's just a win, in my opinion. That's just a win. It will help the new players. It'll make it a more conservative playstyle for future players and for current endgame players. And it's a simple system. Nothing else to really drag on about. Just revamp the leveling system. And so that's everything I got for you guys today. That's been my list of things that Mihoyo can consider, and even if they don't, they will never obviously see this video. This video is such an obscure topic. But, you know, for people who see this, just take these ideas as potential ideas to increase player playtime and player enjoyment of the game. Obviously, this is not, you know, I didn't do the best way of describing them. I didn't describe them in any way that would be sufficient enough for you know, publication into a game. But, you know, these are concepts, take them with a grain of salt. You know, you have the artifact customization with different artifacts, boss system, different character abilities, a roguelike dungeon crawler, and revamped level system, something to increase player playtime and enjoyment of the game. So obviously not the most detailed things in the world by me, but still they're cool ideas that I find that, you know, very cool, very interesting, very player engaging and whatnot. So think about the ideas, you know, and if you want, share the video with a friend or share the video with whoever you want, really, just to get the ideas across and whatnot. This has been a long video, so I do apologize on that. But yeah, that's that. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. Also consider subscribing down below. It will help me a lot if you do so. And also, whilst you're down there, ring that notification bell to stay notified of when I upload next. Also, I'll be streaming every Monday and Friday some Genshin Impact, either grinding or weekly reset stuff, so remember to check me out there. I think it's 6 PM to 10 PM Australian Eastern Standard Time. And with that all being said, I'll see you all in the next one. Have an amazing day. Peace out.